Hey everybody, it's the 13th of May, 2025. This is the second to last session of Aiken PBL live coding. We've spent the last few months getting together on Tuesdays at 12:30 UTC, where we get together, we talk about things we're learning in the Aiken PBL course. We look at projects that people have been building. Code Cow led us through an app that he's working on over the last few weeks, and we've been talking a little bit about auditing. And before we went live today, the question came up of, okay, well, suppose we do complete an audit of some smart contracts. What next? How do I know my app is ready for mainnet? And we were talking a little bit about that question. And then Faizan mentioned that he had been reading about TX3. So before going live, we were looking at the TX3 docs a little bit. Here's a tweet thread about it. And we were looking through some of the examples. I was just, I thought it was very funny to learn, that you guys are trolling the EVM crowd with these policy IDs right here. Can I even call that a policy ID? I'm not sure. But yeah, on your mission to improve the developer experience, as always, want to say thanks to TX Pipe for building cool tools. And to our question about going to mainnet, we see it right here, right? Hey, this is not yet ready for mainnet. Just use it as a technical preview. So you can trust that we'll be playing around with it. And I think it was exciting to see this Asteria example and to notice some of the similarities between Aiken and this TX3 language that TX Pipe is rolling out. So pretty cool. The agenda we set right before going live looks like this. And this is what we usually do is before pressing record, we just talk about a couple things we want to cover today. And like I mentioned, one of the things we just all have on our mind is, okay, how do I know I'm ready to go to mainnet? Is it true that all I have to do is recompile the contracts with the right parameters and deploy the scripts? Is that enough? And we have some relevant cases right here. CodeCow has been working on an app called Unspent TX. The Asteria crew has been working on our implementation of a front end for that. And I'm just wondering, we could stay on this for a couple minutes. What are you guys thinking? Like in terms of Harsha's point, can I just compile the contracts and throw them on chain? To what extent do you agree with that? And where would you feel the greatest concerns about deploying adapt to mainnet? Like, why not just if unspent TX is ready, why not deploy it to mainnet today?
Good question. Maybe we will. No, I think
There's a more, and
right,
then
like
there's
what how I'm trying to release this is like I'm asking these questions, you're asking these questions, what's the right way to do this? I think Harsha is right in that the same way I go on pre-prod is the same way I do it on mainnet. I just change those variables around the network tab or whatnot. But it should be the same, or that's what I would expect from working on something that's called pre-prod, right? And then switching to mainnet is it should be just changing those couple variables. And then, so is that ready? And like that question, I think the answer is it's ready if you pay $25,000 for an audit firm, or maybe it's ready when the code is so well documented, so well open source that it's just anybody can go in there and read it and understand what's going on. And right, like if you can document it so well that you don't need a professional firm to come in and audit, you can have Newman or me, newbies come in and look at the code, read it, and understand it because it's so well communicated. And that's what I'm leaning on as to what's the goal here? What's the public audit version of how do we go to mainnet? Is really, really good documentation, and then the assumption that Harsh is right, which I can just change the network tab.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to start with your first assumption because this is 100% true. If your app works the way you want it to on pre-prod, it's going to work the same way on mainnet. Full stop. And so CodeCow, what I think it's the additional stuff you said after that that's the most important here is okay, well, yes, if I feel confident that it does what I want it to do on pre-prod, then I know it's going to work on mainnet, and it is just a matter of plugging in some different variables and deploying those reference scripts to a different network, mainnet. Sure. But how do we get to the point where now other people are going to trust it enough to use it? And, you know, if I say I'm confident enough, does that mean that I'm 100% confident that I've covered all possible edge cases? Or am I really saying, I'm 95%, but you know what? I could use some community attention to this to make sure that there's nothing I haven't considered. And to either of those questions, whether it's public trust or making sure that you as the developer truly are at 100% confidence that's going to work the way you intend it to, there's nothing better than having some public attention on it, right? And getting a community of people to be able to read the code and read the documentation, understand what it does.
How well are is the average DApp that's out there on mainnet? How well is it audited? How well is it documented? Um,
It's
yeah,
a it's sporadic.
yeah.
You can see like some of the audit firms, they will release their audits that they do, and you can follow those documentations, and those are really, really awesome. Um, and standardized, right? If you get the same one or same company doing it, you could see. I've thought, you know, the model we discovered last week of, this pair programming going through this is like, a YouTube channel or a group of people that goes through every DApp in Cardano, all the big ones, whatever they are, and just like going through their code just like we did before. And then you get a real answer of like how well are people documenting this, how standardized is it, like can we read Sunday swaps contracts as easy as we could read levies, and like um I don't know, I've thought that is like, to learn, or just in general, like it would be interesting content in the system of like a real deep dives into the code that runs Cardano. Yeah.
I would enthusiastically support a proposal to spend time like that, whether that's a summer activity or something we pick up in the fall, as a space, with the sustain and maintain funding to create the space that you just described, Code Cow. And that's an amazing idea.
I would want Newman and Harsh. I would want everybody that did it last week in it too, because that's where that magic is. It's in the group
Well,
mind,
this
is what
this
I'm.
brings up, so let's talk incentives for a minute too. Okay, so when it comes to auditing code, when we have some private entity charging whatever amount they're charging to provide an audit, their incentive is to make sure that their audit is trustable, right? And if my organization, our bread and butter is to sell this auditing service, and it turns out that our audit isn't enough to inspire confidence. If a loophole is found, right, um, then my reputation as an auditor will suffer, and so will my bottom line. So I have a clear incentive to do things right, a nice business model for those funds. The model we're talking about is interesting, and I want to come back to this in just a second, but think about it, right? When a DApp is on pre-prod, there are minimum incentives to try to exploit it at that time. But once it's on mainnet, you are guaranteed to attract a little bit more attention from people who will try to take advantage, right, of things you've overlooked, loopholes in the system. And so it's right. What's one of the best ways to find out if my code is sound, right? I'll put it out there and let somebody try to exploit it. Obviously, you don't want to do that in a way that's going to hurt trust or lead to somebody losing funds that they wouldn't have lost otherwise. And so how might we imagine an incentive model for people to participate in this kind of public audit? And Code Cow, as you said, like, right, you would want people who have been working through this process to be there for a live session where we reviewed other code. Um, well, with that in mind, is there some experiment we might define where we're incentivizing each other or people we haven't met yet to join in sessions like this and to be part of a group that's providing this kind of audit service with, sustainable incentives?
Yeah.
I would join a group of you guys if you were to do that. I would participate in that group mind. That would be fun for me. Just saying that as general.
And so one thing that's in it for you is you enjoy it.
Yes, and I learn, and I am in general like I'm trying to find money in this ecosystem and a job.
Mhm.
But yes, I would do it because it's all of those things. It could lead to some money, but also like it was so much fun to do that with the group last week. I really liked it. I want to do it again, and I want to learn more. I can't tell you how much I learned. Like really, I've touched every line of code just because I heard one person read my code, and then
Mhm.
the whole everything changed for me. So I just kind of want to live in that bubble more. So yes, I do just enjoy it.
That's incredible, right? So, and we've talked a lot about like when people learn together, they build a relationship. Who knows where that relationship goes next? And we have documented examples of people launching bigger initiatives out of the relationships formed here. So like there's a clear incentive there. Like I think it's a reasonable hypothesis that more people would want to spend time this way if we created the space for it. So that's cool. And then yeah, like recognizing all of that, but then also thinking of, okay, well, is there a way to make it even more sustainable, right? Can this be something that people earn appropriately for participating in?
I would think so. I mean, I guess I don't understand the market and the gap between somebody that's going to pay 25 grand for an audit, and like how many people are kind of like me where we want an audit but we nowhere near have that kind of funding to do that. And so is there a market for people that want an audit that just are kind of scared about that huge price tag, because those are the ones you'd capture. Otherwise, like if somebody has unlimited funds, would they go to us or go to TX Pipe? Well, whoever has the better reputation, like they're going to go to if money doesn't matter. So then you'd have to try to compete to have a better reputation. But like I don't know, maybe only 2 audits happen a year, and so this is like we're not fighting over any business, or there's like a lot going on, and like there's a big gap in the market where smaller dApps are not getting the look and the real audit that they should have because they don't have the money, and therefore there is a need for this kind of service, right? Like I'm kind of stuck not knowing the environment we're in because of my particular position where I'm in a situation where I want something, but like maybe there's not a lot of developers like me that also want this very particular thing. I don't know. Yeah. In terms of like the business aspects of it, like, is there a really demand for this? I don't see that. What I do see is lots of code out in the ecosystem and not a lot of people with like in-depth understanding of that code. But that's not necessarily leading to business or revenue, rather just like an opportunity to create content that I don't know what I'm saying. It's too much. Sorry.
No, I get it. I get it. It's sort of the way I think of it is like that internet, network, and certainly the Sunday swaps and the Sunday swaps to be or exchanges or where there's millions or a very very large amount. Then those audits, it's just a scaling thing. Those audit costs, they seem big to us, but they're really pennies to others. And but there's this whole idea of here comes everybody, where me and Harsha have an idea for an app, and we can't spend that much. It only has 10,000 ADA in the app. Like it doesn't have a lot. It doesn't. But there's a scale where you have to have some confidence in there. Ethically it would be, if it's just us two looking at it and be like, oh, we think it's great. So I think there is a market fit for it. And then it could be, yeah. So that's kind of that's a point to make, because it's like, yeah, of course. And in that network mentality of like, oh yeah, there's community review, which is sort of open source, is the way I would imagine open source works. It's just like, oh yeah, groups of people get together and review the code. And I think our innovation is that we want to somehow structure it, bottle it, so to speak, and then make it an activity to allow more people to enjoy it, because it gives us all of these benefits. Um,
And Faizan just threw in the chat, right? He's got another app that we could use as the follow-up to Unspent TX. So we already have a second one in line.
yeah.
Yeah, I would volunteer to play Newman's role going over Faizan's app or the next app. Or right, I want to play the noob that knows nothing.
I love that it's
Can we try that next week just to play with this system?
Can it always be the Newman role?
Yeah.
McDuck.
Okay.
It is the right name
I mean,
for it,
we
right?
have Cardano eras named after people. Why not? Yeah, why not roles in this structure?
That would be great. And the James role, and the
Oh,
Adrian role.
you just have to say hello. Adrian's irreplaceable. I'm not sure how anybody takes on that role.
That's true. Oh man. But I do think it's a great discussion to sort of in that sort of input output. So we input like our time and the structure, and then what are the outputs? Like what do we get out of it? And it is like an ADA reward uh, appropriate, because in a very real sense, I mean, we were paid for the facilitation, and the other things that went on in that session.
It's a lot of work. I mean, just to understand this stuff, to be able to read the code is months. So,
Right. That's that part of, like, in a way, a skilled worker, because it does require, even though I'm a noob, I'm still, or the Newman role needs to be in that sweet spot of knowing enough to read it, but not knowing so much that it's trivial or
mhm.
asking the right questions, meaning that they can speak to this person in the Newman role, can ask an appropriate question that's not, that Adrian and James in those roles that they can understand and respond to, and then the listeners, the people, you know what I mean? They act as a bridge. It's sort of that bridging. There's a sweet spot of the right amount of understanding so that it fills the knowledge gap.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. But everybody partaking is a skilled worker, and therefore I would say deserves ADA. Because you can't, even as the Newman role, you can't take that position without a ton of experience, knowing exactly how to read this stuff, knowing all this, right? It's just so
and
I would assume that yes, it's a skilled position and
that
should
and
be paid.
to use our that terminology, the prerequisite is this the Aiken PBL, the Plutus PBL, and some of the other courses here.
Yeah, and yeah, if you guys do the criteria on Endamio, it could be like if you wanted to be an auditor on our circle of auditors, you had to, I don't know, get the Endamio certification or watch all the videos like I did or whatnot.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And there's,
I
and
think it could be cool. I think that's a really like I am interested in that as an idea and like executing it on a team. And so if you guys, if anybody wants to move forward with this, like just and you want to include me, I'm open to it. So
Yeah, I think we're drafting the proposal. I mean,
I
I mean,
think this has to be a proposal. I think this is
does that
it's a really good idea. And
what is the proposal means? Are we asking for money?
yeah,
What does that
exactly.
mean?
So yeah,
Yeah,
so Gimbalabs has a proposal process where anytime you're asking for either funds and or other people's time, we have a way to just draft up a proposal. And on Thursdays, we go through a consent process for approving those kinds of budget or time requests.
cool,
Right.
cool. Okay.
And yeah, right at this time, we have like 140K ADA from
Oh, good
Catalyst
for you
proposals.
guys.
Yeah, like this is, and it's just waiting for projects like this to take root. We're actually wrapping up our current commitments to each other in a round of such proposals over, next week. And so the Gimbal Lab schedule for June and beyond is not yet written. And so this is a great time for a proposal like this to emerge. And I I'm not going to put a number on it that whoever writes the proposal can decide, but this is something that I think would justify using a chunk of those funds.
Well, I don't know the real process that you guys go through on Gimbal Labs, but I just want to again reiterate I'm interested. However this
Yeah.
works, so include me, talk to
Can
me, or
can
don't,
you
whatever.
can you join us at 14:30 UTC on Tuesday, excuse me, on Thursday?
Yeah, I should be able to.
See if
Maybe
that's
I might jump
possible.
in.
But in the meantime, Harsha Newman, between the three of us, can we get a proposal in the works and at least have like an outline ready for Thursday?
Yes, we can.
And this is a really good idea. Um, and I want to, I mean, first of all, I love this concept just from the perspective of what Andamio is trying to do. For anybody who's not aware, we're very interested in distributed networks of experts, right? And so the example we already have running is called Lead Gen DAO. And these are people who are experts at generating business leads for Web3 companies. And so we have Andamio, NMaker, Palmyra, and Socius. We're bringing people aboard who can generate qualified leads for those four Web3 companies. Right? And that's one example of a distributed network of experts, of which we might be defining a second one right now. Hey, what if I could get this kind of audit, a community session where I walk through my code live with somebody else? There's somebody in the Newman role, right, who can look at it. Newman, I think whether or not you are a beginner for the long term, your expertise in my mind is in part just wearing that beginner hat. and being able to ask questions, right? Like you're so good at saying, "Oh, right, like I think I recognize this part from this other thing." Right? Tell me more about this bit. And that kind of like open mindedness, that's yes, there's some background that you got from the PBL courses, and I think it's very interesting to consider using Aiken and Plutus PBL to satisfy some of the prereqs for this. But we also might want somebody to like earn a beginner's mind badge or something, right? Like by practicing that kind of open facilitation that you do. And it plays beautifully off of like the Adrian hat. Like I think without Adrian, last week's session might not have been quite as productive because Adrian was able to hop in and with his expert hat on, kind of give language to things that CodeCow was um, trying to express. And in doing so, we've talked about this idea of like the zone of proximal development, right? Adrian was hitting CodeCow right at his zone of proximal development. And CodeCow was like, yes, exactly. That's exactly what I'm trying to say, right? And those moments are priceless. So, imagining both of those roles, but also thinking about getting the word out about this and how do we publicize it? How do we maybe is there a written component after a session? Do we feed the transcript from the session through an LLM and then craft it into a blog post about each session? I'm saying this list of things just because I know we're recording it, so I can grab it later. But like these are all things that we might want to incorporate into a proposal.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah, really exciting. Couldn't have predicted that we would have ended up here with Aiken PBL, but this is why we create spaces because you never know.
Yeah.
Very cool. And obviously, there's no guarantees about the commercial viability of providing this service, but I do think that there's a growing number of people from across Cardano who recognize the need for just kind of these distributed ways of coming together, right? And building up the level of what people generally understand about what Cardano can do. So I'm satisfied enough with a hypothesis that says, yeah, we might find a market for this. Let's see if we can find it.
Yeah.
So
Thanks. I
quickly
just got
jump
real.
into
Yeah.
like one of the validators. We
Yeah.
have
So
15 minutes left,
we
so
have
I'll
15
like
minutes
try to
left.
run
Let's
through.
demo. And thanks. I was just thinking out loud mode there. Thanks for listening. But yeah, let's demonstrate what we're talking about by picking it up with Unspent TX.
Right. So are you guys able to see my screen?
Yeah, looks good. Thanks.
We got the latest.
All right, perfect.
Good.
Is there any specific validator you'd prefer to go through, CodeCow?
Well, last week we did the Plutus NFT. Okay, I made small changes. Okay, go to the DS NFT. This is the double spent NFT, which was last week named the Plutus NFT, and I just made small amendments that didn't change anything, but it helps us work through. So this is the double spent NFT that we went through last week. And so if you want to just read those comments and then jump into the Oracle, then we could have we'll start off exactly where we left off.
Okay, so this is a minting validator, right? Yeah, this is a
Yep.
minting validator. And what it is doing is find exactly one input with Oracle NFT from the list of inputs with inline datum of some type. So you're making sure there is inline datum. How are you defining the Oracle input dot output dot datum? Okay. Expect Oracle datum count. Specifically type Oracle datum with a count field. Okay. On only one token is minted using count as asset name. Okay. So there is one input which has inline datum specifically with, and the datum has a count field, and only one token is minted. Those are the four, right?
Yep. Using count as asset name.
Oh, the asset name is count. Okay. Okay, sounds good.
And then if you want to open up the test and do Aiken check DS.
Yeah.
You may need to go into the workspace.
Oh,
Right. It'll say that there's no toml if you did it there.
Yeah. I think CD Aiken workspace.
oh.
And just try DS. Yeah. And this is what I tried to do. I tried to make the test really, really useful. And so you can just read it right there, right? We're in the DS NFT, and then you just type DS, and here you can see everything where it's succeeding and failing. And that should be the same across the code base. So the next thing we should look at is the Oracle, which is being spent every time we burn or we create the NFT. But I'm trying not to lead, so sorry.
No, that's okay. At least if you give us like a structure, we can go through.
Yeah. So I would say we should go to the Oracle.
Oracle, just Oracle or Oracle
Yeah,
NFT?
Oracle AK. Yeah.
Okay. So we have defined a public type, which is the Oracle datum, which is count, treasury address, spot address. Okay, so this is a type.
The only thing that's changed from last week is I added the divisor.
Divisor.
It's the last
right here.
type.
Okay.
And so basically that was hard coded before to 2. And that set the game rules to like only 49%, and you can only spend 2 treasury inputs. But that can be changed. So I added the game modes with that divisor. So just know that used to be 2, and now it can be whatever we want, but you could still think of it as 2.
Okay.
So does that mean during a running game you can change the divisor?
You can change it before you start the game.
So when you say you, are you talking about the players?
Sorry, these are good questions. As an admin, when I initiate the game, I can set the divisor to what I want.
Okay.
But then could it be, this is me, this is Newman just jumping in, could it be changed? I think that's what Adrian was asking. I was like, because that would be
not in between the game. And you can actually see that in this validator. If we scroll down just a little bit, and we can just show you that line. So line 47, we are destructuring our Oracle datum, and we're going to get the divisor from there. That's from our input on line 47. See that divisor? From datum optional, which is our datum we're spending, right? And that gets the divisor. And then the next line, on line 55, it says let is output datum equal only output datum dot datum is equal to the inline datum type Oracle datum. It reads a little confusing, but we're comparing the input datum with the output datum right there. And so when we say divisor, what we're saying is that divisor is destructured from the input datum. And so what we're saying is the output datum is also the input datum dot divisor. And in that same thing, that's where we say the count, right? We say the output datum is count plus 1. And then everything else remains the same. Also we have winner, right? Winner changes from the redeemer. winner to new winner, and that gets passed through the redeemer. But if we want to try to read the comments on this validator and kind of go through the whole thing, maybe it will help.
From the top?
I think we did that, right? That's our game state.
So just these guys?
Yeah.
So finding the input being spent, so which is, yeah, you're just finding the input and then custom helper function to find the Oracle NFT policy ID from its own input. So input, find policy ID of first token. Oh, this is a custom function that you wrote. Okay.
Yes.
Find the address of the input being spent. Okay, so let own address is okay. And after that, destructure the datum. This is what we just spoke about. And when the redeemer includes a new winner,
so that pattern matches with the line above, right? So I tried to write the comment as if it pattern matches, right? So it's when redeemer on line 48 is equal to mint DSNFT on line 50.
Let's see.
Go to line 48 at the beginning. No, at the very beginning of it.
Oh, so when redeemer, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and there you can kind of read it. So like that's the pattern matching right below it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So when redeemer and inputs with a specific policy, so it's extracting that input with the specific policy, output at with policy. Oh, inputs at with policy. Is this the custom function? No, this is
That's
from
a cocktail one, I think.
Inputs at with policy. 1 second, let me quickly look at that.
Yeah, this might be a good one.
Inputs at with policy. So it is filtering the inputs with a specific, okay, so it's just giving you the inputs out of the list of inputs with a specific policy, okay.
At the address, inputs
and
at
the address, yeah. Okay, makes sense. And so you're doing that with the inputs and also with the outputs.
Yep.
Which is mint DSNFT, and it's taking the winner when the redeemer includes a new winner. Okay. When one output, there is only exactly one output. Okay. When one output with Oracle NFT is present. Okay. What is happening when only one output with Oracle NFT is present? Let is output value clean is list.length. So you're calculating the length of the list and you're saying it has to be exactly of the size 2. Oracle UTXO output is comprised of only one NFT and it's Lovelace. Okay. So the value 2 is basically saying one NFT and Lovelace value.
Yes.
Is that what the 2 is? Okay. Let is datum updated is equal to compare output datum with the input datum. Okay. So only output datum dot datum inline. Oh, so this is the one you just explained. You are saying the output datum and the input datum are exactly the same. And we need to make sure the count is increasing.
But everything else.
And there is the winner.
Yes.
Okay. Update the winner to new winner. The rest of the fields are checked to make sure they're not updated. Okay, so these two must change and the rest of them should stay the same. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Let each treasury paid get all values to transaction outputs, pay treasury, get all values to transaction dot outputs, treasury address, pipe operator to value GQ. I have no idea where
Greater than or
that came
equal
from.
to.
Oh,
There
greater than a. Okay. From Lovelace treasury price. Okay. All two. Okay. Is greater than. Okay. That makes sense. Let is pot paid. Get all values to transaction output. Same thing. Value is greater than equal to from Lovelace pot price. Okay. So you're making sure the pot price is taken care of. Let is fee paid. Get all values. This thing. Value greater than.
and it's just saying that there's that much there.
Yeah,
That
so they're making sure that the fee is paid. They're getting the money from the pot, depending on how much is there in the pot. And similarly, they're making sure the money is paid to the treasury. Okay.
So all of these are tx.outputs, right? Get all value to tx.output. So all
Mm-hmm.
three of these are being paid from the minter. Like I'm a user and I'm coming in to mint a new NFT. In order to do that, I have to pay the treasury, pay the pod, and pay the fee.
Okay. Okay. Oh,
and
so
it,
even if it's the winner, you still have to pay these, right?
Yeah, we're only minting an NFT right now. We're minting a DS NFT and we're spending our
Oh,
Oracle.
oh, I
So
see. Okay.
we are putting the money into the treasury, we're putting the money into the pot, and we're putting money into the fee, which is me as a developer. So
Hmm.
yeah, we're not extracting value. We're only putting value into the protocol, and that's why we're using the TX outputs to make sure that these are paid.
Got it, got it. And that's why it says, is output value clean? Is datum updated? Is treasury paid? Is pot paid? Is fee paid? And if all of these are true, this passes.
Yes,
And
and we can mint.
if doesn't, it fails. Okay.
So now run Aiken check Oracle.
nice. And I'll ask a question here. The Oracle is burnt and spent. No, burnt and minted.
No,
So, or each time, or is it just it's
the
pat?
so here's what we need to get for the Oracle. The Oracle uses a Oracle NFT, which is a one-time minting policy, and that initializes a state that we can trust. And that's the only reason we have that Oracle NFT in there, is to like trust the initial state. And
Right.
then once you have that, you can spend this transaction and update the datum in a trusted manner. And so we do that with the Oracle datum. But like that transaction, when you're looking at it, it's a transaction that has an NFT, but that NFT doesn't actually store anything. It's just saying that like this is trusted.
Okay.
And then what's actually changing is the datum on the UTXO. And so in order to trust that datum, it needs to always be attached to that Oracle NFT. Maybe I didn't describe that well. It's a concept that like is so clutch, and I get it when I hear other people talk about it, but I may have just confused you more. So I'm sorry if I
So,
did.
so when you say datum is attached to Oracle NFT, you mean like it is attached to the UTXO in which that
Yes.
NFT exists? Okay, okay.
Yeah, it's not actually attached to the NFT.
Correct. Okay.
It's attached to the UTXO that includes the NFT.
Beautiful.
Makes sense. Okay.
Okay, yeah, but the test here, do we do it? Okay, nice. So we have a success spend Oracle. And so this is kind of my convention, is like it's either success or fail. And then what action is it? Are you spending? Are you minting? Are you withdrawing? And then it's the name of the thing, and then it's the details. So if you kind of wanted to read the error of the first fail spend Oracle with
Fail
unclean output.
spend.
So I would read
Unclean.
that like I would read with unclean output, and then I'd go to the traces, and then I'd see, is output value clean, false? And that makes sense to me. Okay, fail spend Oracle with unclean output, and then it's tracing fail at is output value clean. And so the last couple lines of the test name should work with the trace anyways. Okay, and now you're looking at my testing library, which maybe we don't, I mean, it's already 10 o'clock, so I don't know what we need to do for time, but I do want to explain this kind of pattern that I built, but maybe it's another time. I don't know.
I do have to jump at this time. People are welcome to keep going.
What do you think?
What do you guys think? I'm open.
I'm here.
Let's do at least 15 more minutes. Let's see, just so we can wrap this up, so we don't have to have.
We'll cut the recording. I have another meeting to get to. But yeah, thanks everybody. And as always, if you're watching these videos, just know that when you join us live, there's stuff that happens before and after the recording, like there is about to be right now. So join us next week as we wind down, or on Thursday as we discuss the proposal we talked about today. And thanks, y'all.